Morning. Can you hear us? Yes, we can. Looks like we have Stephanie Kelsey up first. Are you guys ready?
We are ready.
Perfect. Any updates or anything that we should know about her before we bring her in?
Yeah, I just want to let you know that all of the required programming is completed. She completed SOTP back in 2023. She's not had any major disciplines since she's been here. She's been pretty appropriate to correctional staff and other incarcerated individuals. And she has a really decent release plan, which is approved by her PO and district.
Okay. I did have just a couple of questions for you. One, I saw that she was or had been participating in that SETS program. And this
I'm sorry, go ahead.
This will be the first person that I've spoken to who's actually done that. So I don't know if you could give us like a brief overview of exactly what that entails.
Sure. The SETS program, her husband and any family who's going to be participating in her, either participating with supervision, any type of needs that she'll need when she leaves. The SETS program basically identifies a lot of the family need, the family need, the therapy need, and the SETS program is supposed to ensure that everyone is on board for her success if she is released. And I'm sure she'll likely go more in detail because she's actually spoke to her husband every step of the way when he was participating in the program. Okay. And this is our second district. I'm hoping that the rest of the districts takes this on too. I think it'd be beneficial.
Yeah. I think that they talked to us about it when we went to visit them as well, and it sounds like a really good program. I just haven't spoken to anybody in an interview yet who's done it. So, and then my second question, as far as like SOTP aftercare or programming, because she is a woman, what is that going to look like for her? Is it just going to be like one-on-one counseling, or is there a curriculum in the second district that they use?
Yeah, it's probably going to be just one-on-one. There's not a lot of female sex offenders currently in second district, so she'll probably do it one-on-one. I would imagine either bi-weekly or weekly with her PO.
Those are my only questions, so thank you. James or Dana, any questions?
I don't.
We are ready to bring her in.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and your ID number for me?
Stephanie Kelsey, 639-2278.
Thank you, Miss Kelsey. My name's Meredith Lamberti, and here with me are James Moses and Dana Wingert, and we're the 3-member panel of the Board of Parole who are going to be talking with you this morning. Before we get started, I want to go over a couple of things with you so you know what's going to happen today. Okay. So the very first thing that's important for you to know is that this Zoom that we're on is considered a public forum. And what that means is that members of the public or the media, they can listen to your interview, but they can't participate in it. But because they can listen, it's important that you know we might discuss some personal and confidential information today. And that includes, but isn't limited to, things like your medical history, mental health history, substance abuse history, treatment history, or other confidential information. So do you understand that those are some topics we might talk about this morning?
I understand.
All right. And do you still want to have the interview?
Yes.
Okay. So what's going to happen is that each of the 3 of us might have some questions for you. And we'll start with our questions first. And then once we're done with our questions, that's when I'll turn back to you and you'll have the opportunity to tell us anything else that you'd like for us to know or anything that you might have prepared for us today.
Okay.
And then once you've had a chance to make a statement, then the 3 of us are going to go into our deliberation where we discuss what our decision is going to be. And we'll do that here on the Zoom, so you'll be able to listen to our discussion as we're having it. And then once we reach a final decision, I'll turn back to you. I'll explain anything about it that might be confusing, and then that'll end our interview for the day, okay?
Okay.
Are you ready to get started?
I am.
All right, so I'm going to have you start by giving us, a brief but detailed explanation of the crime that you committed. Use initials for your victim and not a name because you have a minor victim. But other than that, just give us, like I said, a brief but detailed explanation of your crime.
I was a special education teacher at Eastwood High School. I was the advisor of my victim, KB. We had a inappropriate relationship together, which ended up having sexual intercourse, and which then led to me being here.
All right, thank you. So we do have some victim statements that our victim liaison is going to read for us. So I'm going to turn that over to her now, and I'll have you sit back and listen, and then we'll continue with our questions after that. Heather.
Thank you. I have 3 statements that I'm going to share on behalf of the family today. The first one is from Paul and Sue Strong, and they would like to share that sitting here recollecting how the last 3 years have changed our lives sickens us. It will forever haunt us. The traumatic occurrence feels like we are living in a nightmare. As grandparents and parents, we feel so torn on how to help or provide support for our daughter and grandson. We don't want to say or do the wrong things. We try to reiterate it wasn't their fault. Keegan was the victim. This will affect him the rest of his life. No child should ever have to endure such pain. When our children hurt, we hurt. We shouldn't be hearing the words released from prison for what this woman has done to our family. She used her position as a teacher to groom and manipulate our grandson in self-serving, lascivious acts. This is right. Sorry. There is right and wrong, and this is so wrong. Keegan has missed out on so much, as has his mother. He would have been a senior this school year. They should be relishing every moment of his special time, the special time in their life. Circumstances change all that. Stephanie has a son graduating this spring. We feel she needs to miss these special moments like prom and graduation. We have to sit idly back and watch our daughter go through hell. She struggles with her job, marriage, and helping Keegan as a single mother, and watching Keegan try to maneuver through adolescence, feeling like he cannot trust anyone. Miss Kelsey has committed adultery in the past and has had a child with another man. She continues to go out with friends, flirting and propositioning other men. She seduced a 14-year-old boy. She sure didn't think of her husband and 5 children or making a mockery of her profession to indulge in her own personal perversion. We were informed by the county attorney that she would serve at least 5 years of her 15 sentencing by the judge. How can you justify letting a pedophile out before she has completed the provisions set by the court to perpetrate another individual? In conclusion, Stephanie Kelsey is a predator of the worst kind. Let's protect our children. For Keegan and Kayla's peace of mind, please do the right thing by not granting her early release. Stephanie's abhorrent conduct is unacceptable. Our justice system needs to protect future victims and put to end such loathsome behavior. Sincerely, Paul and Sue Strong. The next statement is on behalf of Kayla Scholl. Kayla would like to say, to live in the body of a survivor is to never be able to leave the scene of the crime. I cannot ignore the fact that I live here. Life bared. As I sit here to write this letter, I find myself in the same situation I was in when I sat down to write my victim impact statement. As I read that quote, it mimics my daily life. As of March 11th, 2022, my life, as well as my son's, changed forever. Can you imagine sending your child to school and finding out they were manipulated and groomed by a teacher? The school or teacher that is supposed to protect children to assist in teaching them right versus wrong. I reflect back to trying to put my emotions into words to explain everything that has happened and how it has changed my life and Keegan's immensely. As I was opening the letter I received from the Board of Parole and read the words, as a registered victim in this matter, my heart sank and my legs began to shake. I thought, how could this be happening? Our wounds are still fresh and she is going to be reviewed. After I finished reading, I took a deep breath, realizing I have a chance to speak on how my son and I have been impacted and what I feel is right. It's truly disheartening to accept how one individual can take her position of power to ruin the innocence of a child. PTSD, it's not the person refusing to let go of the past, but the past refusing to let go of the person. When we feel weak, we drop our heads on the shoulders of others. And that's from healthplace.com. Due to Stephanie Kelsey's actions, my son and I both struggle with PTSD. Every day we live with the trauma of what she chose to do. No person can know the impact that trauma can have on your life, not only in the moment, but also the future. Imagine the nightmare of not being able to reach your child. No text, no calls, curfew comes and goes, silence becomes torture, wondering where they are and what is happening. That is only a fraction of the emotions I feel knowing my child was abused. April 10th, 2023 was the day she was sentenced, a day where my son could finally take a breath, knowing she was somewhere she couldn't hurt him anymore. A day that I could try to start the process of healing, knowing that justice had prevailed. It is so hard to put into words or describe the deep pit in my stomach that I feel when I think about how she took my 14-year-old's innocence. He was a child, the victim. Stephanie Kelsey has not changed. She continues to deny responsibility for her crimes and continues to blame Keegan for what she did and is responsible for. In July 2023, she requested a hearing for reconsideration of sentencing. She wanted to go into schools and talk to kids. As a pedophile, she should never be around children again. Initially, Stephanie claimed innocence, then confessed to the crime, backtracked, placing all the blame on Keegan, that she was the victim of a predatory 14-year-old. Someone admits to a felony, goes before a judge, and takes a plea deal. She is sentenced to the maximum allowable by law. She serves 2 years and is back in free society. How do you justify that? I may be biased that she deserves a lifetime sentence for the trauma she caused to myself and my son. However, I firmly believe she needs to serve her full sentence. She needs to take responsibility and be held accountable. The justice system needs to do what it was intended to do. I cannot fathom the thought of her or anyone else manipulating another child. It took her only a few months to upend life as I knew it. 2 years served is not nearly enough time for her to be rehabilitated when she has taken a lifetime from my son. A note to ask anyone who needs to hear it. We don't get over or move on from our trauma. We are forced to make space for it. We carry it, we learn to live with it, and sometimes we thrive in spite of it. We pray that the law will uphold this judgment on Stephanie Kelsey. Sincerely, Kayla Schultz. And the last statement that I'll be sharing is on behalf of Keegan Bunt. Keegan shares, I'm not very sure how to start out to type something like this, so I will begin with read this, listen to this, and comprehend this as if we were talking face to face. I will begin with a quote stated by Alice Parif. PTSD nightmares aren't always exact replays of the event. Sometimes they replay the emotions you felt during the event, such as fear, helplessness, and sadness. To me, in a day-to-day life that consists of driving by a place, seeing certain people, hearing certain sounds, being in a room or a place or a building that reminds me of places the assault took place. I feel my heart pound, my anxiety, fight or flight kick in, my legs and hands will begin to shake. I will feel a sense of nervous sweat, just simply many physical and mental emotions that are not enough words in the English language to describe the overwhelming emotions. It is a terrible feeling, the flashbacks and memories of the abuse and trauma Stephanie put me through. All the time, every day, 24/7, there is a large burden of trauma followed by a dark, horrible thoughts weighing on my mind of the abuse and simply everything I endured while being abused by Stephanie. Stephanie Kelsey has ruined my life, indefinitely and permanently hurt the lives of my current family and a family I wish to create in the future. Stephanie has destroyed my whole belief and concept of love. She has taken away my high school experience. And there are so many other things I wished I could have done as a normal high school student I will never get back. She has destroyed my social life. I live every day without a single friend to call or talk to or be there for me for any reason. There are many terms I will use in this letter and I have used. I had no idea the meaning or even the words meant from the start to the end of the abuse, such as grooming. I did not know her being overly helpful to me with schoolwork and accidentally brushing my leg or excessively touching me in any way was defined as grooming and just a starting path for the manipulation and terrible things she had planned to do to me. All I was looking for in her was to be a mentor of my schoolwork, teach and guide me to accomplish my school duties. I am able to learn better having one-on-one help, and she totally and positively abused her power to do that. I believe she had seen me helpless at schoolwork and had many more thoughts of how vulnerable I could be in something else. So she took advantage of me in every way she could see fit. The first time she made a distinctive move on me, I was looking for her on the third floor of the high school in her room for help with work, and I found her in a neighboring room where she then pulled me in and pushed me against a desk and wall and forced herself on me for a kiss. I was beyond scared and helpless in that moment, knowing the only person I built teacher-student relationship with is now sexually assaulting me. How do you think that made an innocent 14-year-old male feel? I'll tell you, horrible, absolutely horrible. And after that initial shock, I came to believe we were in love. It was not love, but indeed exploitation of a child by an adult authority figure. Hearing that a person like Stephanie Kelsey, let alone actually being Stephanie Kelsey is being reviewed for parole, is a gut-wrenching, horrible, and disappointing feeling. How on earth can a person destroy so many lives, hurt so many people, and scar one that was once 14 years old during her attack, be approved to possibly be let out of prison on a 15-year sentence after only serving less than 3 years? I deep down believe she is not ready to be released. She has not been rehabilitated, and I believe even serving the entire sentence, she will not be. It will be 100% better for her to be in till the end of her sentence, but you will never fix the way she destroyed my life. Never. I was so deeply abused, manipulated, and hurt by the things she put me through at such a young age. People like her do not deserve to be let out into an innocent and free society only after a short time of serving a sentence for such horrible things. After the little time she has been incarcerated, she has not even taken accountability for what she has done to me. She still believes she is the victim and the one that was manipulated in this situation when she was over 30 years old and her victim being myself, being 14 at the time. There is no way I can get over or forget what I went through because of her. Although time does help, I will never live my life or think the same way I did before she took advantage of me. People like her are disgusting and have a motive for how they attack people, and the way these people think will not get fixed in only a short time of imprisonment. I know for a fact I'm definitely not even close to being ready to accept the slightest thought of possibly seeing her in public. Just having to write this, to possibly prolong her time in prison, having to rethink about all the things she has done to me, has my mind slipping into darker places. I would hate to know what I would feel like to see her around in person. Just the thought is breaking me down. All I ask is that the person that makes the decision, if she stays locked away or gets released back to the innocent public, is that you fully understand the best you can my story and my horrible experience with this woman and where my words are coming from and how I mean them, and to please side with justice for myself and my family and keep her away from society and not give her another chance to hurt another individual the way she hurt me. I am scared, as we are all scared, of the possibility of her release. We have to live with some terrible suffering. The memory of that experience can linger for years. Some things in this life you bury just so you don't have to carry. Diggy Grace. Sincerely, Keegan Butt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Ms. Kelsey, after hearing those victim statements, is there anything that you would like to tell the board?
There's no excuse or justification for my actions. I'm guilty, fully guilty of abusing my power and trust as an educator, as an adult, and putting my victim in a situation he should have never been placed in, ever. I'm acknowledging and I take full responsibility for everything that fully happened. But I do know that through all of this, I am ready to take control of my future. I am, through what I've learned in prison, here with being rehabilitated, I do feel I can be a productive law-abiding citizen.
All right, I want to go into some questions about the treatment that you've done while you've been there. So it looks like you completed the Good Lives SOTP class, and then you've been participating in the aftercare since you completed that.
Yes.
And are you helping out as a mentor in that program as well?
Yes. Yep. I help other SOs that are going through the program. We just help kind of bring each other's thoughts out, maybe think outside the box, uplift each other, and just kind of help go day to day.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned about your, cognitive distortions or your negative schemas that you were operating under during your crime?
Yes, at the time I was definitely not using healthy boundaries, coping skills, reaching for help that was definitely needed. There was definitely other outlets that I could have went to. I should have obviously went for help. I should have obviously went to the administration at the time. I have been in education for 10 years. I did know, what I was supposed to be doing. So I am also disgusted in myself for the actions that I did. But being here, now I've learned I can identify my red flags, my triggers. I have safeguards put up. Taking the Good Lives class has taught me healthy boundaries, what that looks like, what it looks like to go and ask for help. It's okay to ask for help if you're feeling some type of way. Go for a walk, all of that type of things. Stay on top of my medication, be in touch with my therapist. Just really honing in on making it a healthy life for myself, my family, and the community.
What are the red flags and triggers that you were able to identify?
Some of my red flags would be starting to be distant from my family and my children. If I started to come home late, not pay attention to what they're doing, I would sneak around on my phone, not let my husband at the time see my phone, be more addicted to social media. I would say just being overly flirty was definitely a trigger. I liked attention at the time. But now, again, like I said, I know how to defer that. I don't need that attention. I know how to get attention in a healthy way now. So.
Can you tell us about that?
Oh, yes. Obviously, age is a factor. My husband and I, we've been through therapy counseling sessions, and just discussing the fact of how if I need attention, the things I'm not getting, I need to vocalize it. I need to communicate that way. I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to make mistakes, but nobody can help me if I don't open my mouth and say something. And then instead of just acting upon how I'm feeling is not healthy. So, reading a book, taking a bath, going and being with my children, just, focusing on what I still can do and what is in my realm of control is all I can do to release my red flags.
And then you said that you had also learned some healthy boundaries for yourself, and you had started to talk about some of those, but can you give us some more examples?
Yes, so healthy boundaries is definitely saying no. When I feel uncomfortable or in a place of enabling, I have to say no, and I'm okay with saying no now. Other people's opinions don't matter. Obviously, for the rest of my life, I'm going to have a huge label. So that's something I take seriously, and I'm just going to have to, have thick skin towards. I put myself here and in this position, so I have to create those boundaries to know no means no, for myself or anybody around me. Realizing that I don't have to please everybody, that I can make my own choices, and that I can choose to live a better life.
And then you had also mentioned keeping up with your medication and keeping in touch with your therapist. So can you tell us where you're at with your mental health and, diagnoses and who you've been working with?
Yes, my therapist is Sadie Gelsing. I've seen her since I've been incarcerated and prior to being incarcerated. I keep in touch with her. And then I will continue to see her. We check in all the time, just to see how I'm feeling, what my thoughts are, bounce ideas back and forth. My medication I take for antidepressants, PTSD, bipolar, and sleep medication, obviously. And I think that's about it.
Okay. When did you start taking those medications?
I started taking the medications I'm on now. I got prescribed here, but I did start August of 2022 taking antidepressant medication that school year.
When were you diagnosed with the bipolar disorder?
When I went to so probably that was August. So December of 2022.
Okay. Have you ever tried to take mental health medication before 2022?
No.
What about counseling?
Nope, not counseling either. It's definitely something I needed to do, but at the time I didn't, I was just letting it all go.
And how do you feel about your medications now and like continuing to take them in the future?
I feel they're very helpful. They keep me regulated. I can stay focused on what I need to do. It keeps me, happy. And so I'm not in a dark place. Seeing my therapist, I love therapy. I think it's a great outlet for anybody, whether you're depressed or not depressed, just having somebody that you can talk to and, when you're feeling any type of way, or just someone to share your little trials and tribulations with, or your wins. So I'm looking forward to continuing therapy. My children and I are also going to do family therapy. My children are also in therapy themselves. Each of them have had, their own issues with all of it. My spouse and I are going to do couples therapy. So we're going to any type of therapy, we're going to continue until we don't need it anymore, which will probably be never, but we'll just continue it.
Okay, thank you. That was my next question. I think I do have more questions for you, but I'm going to give my colleagues a chance and probably circle back in the end. James, questions?
Yeah. How you doing this morning, Ms. Kelsey? Doing all right?
Yeah.
Nerves settling down a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I wanted to ask is that I like knowing people's values, and you had taken a lot of programming. If I was to ask you to tell me 3 values or maybe more that you have today that you didn't have prior to being incarcerated, what would those values be?
I would say my top value would be my family. That's my focus. Self-growth, self-care. Obviously, knowledge is power, and I can always learn to be better. I'm never going to stop learning. I'm never going to stop trying to become a better person. And my third value, family, self-care, and then obviously knowledge is power. To me, being educated, continuing to find my resources and not only helping myself, helping others, advocating for others that have been victimized by people as myself are huge to me.
Okay. And you shared a little bit, but maybe you can expound on it. What do you feel are your biggest concerns?
Going out into the community.
If there was that opportunity for, from this interview, what are your biggest concerns or worries?
My biggest concerns, truthfully, I know that I have lifetime parole. So I do take that seriously, and I understand that any little misstep, I can come back to prison. And that is a huge thing on my part. I also feel that being incarcerated has taught me many different life lessons. So I think I can use the stuff I've learned here to go out into the community and be a better person. My own concerns are, you know, I don't want Keegan and them to feel uncomfortable if they see me. You know, my family, we did relocate, or my husband did relocate counties. He moved out to an acreage. You know, I plan on working in some type of factory thing where I don't have to be, you know, not seen, but maybe run into them. Because I do understand how that is a big trauma factor. And then just, you know, being there for my kids, I do realize, you know, my concern is, you know, I won't be able to see my son graduate, you know, or any of them, because obviously I am a sex offender. I mean, I know there's different rules and types and stuff like that. However, but just knowing that I will follow community guidelines and stuff, and know that the community is safe. There is safeguards in place for me to be in the community.
Okay. That concludes my questions. I appreciate what you had to share thus far. Thank you.
Dana?
Morning, Miss Kelsey. How are you?
Good.
Hey, so we've done a lot of research into this prior to this interview, and you've done a lot of programming, completed a lot of programming while you were there at ICIW. Within the first 5 months of your arrival, you completed active training. Tell me a couple things that you know about yourself now that you didn't know prior to your incarceration. What are some of the tools that you've learned that you're going to be able to put into play moving forward?
I would say definitely communication. I thought I was really good at communicating prior to being incarcerated, but obviously I was not. Being able to fully communicate and being open about my feelings, concerns, and needs and wants is huge. Being able to have open discussions with multiple different types of people. I've learned that not everyone thinks the same way I do, and that just because I think a certain way doesn't mean that they have to feel the same way. So being able to agree but disagree in a healthy manner without, you know, coming to an argument or a disagreement. I would also say just those healthy boundaries. I was really codependent. Really thought I was in control. Control was a big piece of mine, my charge, a control piece. And I think that learning to not utilize control that sort of way was key. To let go, to really sit back and know that you are making bad decisions. You know, see those red flags, stop. You know, no means no, like all of those things.
Okay, another program that you completed, and we talked a little bit with your counselor before you came in, it's called the SETS program, and I know that involves some participation for not just yourself, but others that are, you know, in your life. Can you tell me a little bit about that program and what you learned and how that'll prepare you if, in fact, you are released?
Yes. So my husband and a few of my family members and a few of my close family friends participated in the SETS program, which has taught them to kind of be on the lookout for little red flags, little triggers. Like I said, like I know my trigger is if I start becoming too distant, if I start staying out late. That's when they would start to reel in, you know, doing that extra checking. What are you doing, Stephanie? You know, like my husband said it, he says, you know, we'll be able to check your phone, you know, like the phone thing, like he needs to have access to it as well. Kind of just that accountability piece. They're all now my accountability partners. So like how addicts have AA sponsors and things like that. These people are now people I can go to if they're starting to notice something or feel something's a little off, they can reach out to my PO. My PO will check in with me as well. And then with my therapist and myself, so we can kind of brainstorm, sit back and stop before anything else would ever happen.
Okay, and like I said before, you've been through a lot of programming, a lot of treatment while you've been incarcerated. And we're going back to a small town, obviously. And you earlier in the interview, you had said something about, I'm going to carry this label. What have you learned in that programming and treatment to help you deal with that? When you encounter those individuals that may want to bring this up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did this. This is my label. I am a sex offender by the law. I'm a sex offender. However, that being said, I'm also a mom. I'm also Stephanie Kelsey. I have a lot of good things still that I can do and bring to the world. There's always going to be somebody that doesn't want me around, or anything. And I understand that. I understand that there are laws that will keep me from participating in certain things, and those I plan to uphold. I understand that I took so many life experiences from my victim and his family that I can never replace. But all of these obstacles, when I first came to ICIW, I was full of guilt and shame and anger. But now I've had the opportunity to grow and change my mindset, and how I can use this as an experience to better myself. All these lessons that I've learned, I can now take into the community. I can show my own children how to be better people. We're gonna, obviously this was a detrimental mistake, huge, one that I will live with for the rest of my life. But I know that I will never offend again. I know that. And like I said, being on that lifetime parole also gives me just that thought of, any misstep, any wrong thing could lead me back into prison for the rest of my life. That's huge. And I just really think that that's where also that knowledge piece comes in with people, is being educated on what sex offenders are,
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, thank you. Most of my other questions have been asked. So you have mentioned, your husband and children have moved to an acreage. Are your children still going to the same school district, or did they switch schools?
Just my oldest, he stayed, obviously, as you heard, he is a senior this year, so he did want to just stay in the school district. But my other 4 children, they switched school districts. So yeah, they're no longer in the district that we were in prior.
And then it looks like your counselor that you talked about is in Sac City, but other services are elsewhere. How often do you think you're going to need to be going into town and potentially running into your victim and his family members?
I don't plan really ever to have to go into Sac City. My therapist can do Zoom meetings like this. So from the beginning, she said we could just do, at home. So hopefully it'll just end up being like this. And truthfully, I have no reason to go to Sac County. I mean, no reason at all. I have enough people in my life, family members that could, delegate or whatever. My jobs, any jobs that I'm looking for are in totally different counties. I don't want to put any more trauma on them or my family either.
Okay. And you had mentioned some factory work is an option. Have you identified places that you plan to apply at?
Yes, USG in Fort Dodge. They manufacture drywall. That's one that my PO said is a really good one. So that's where I'm going to apply there. There's also like a Tyson's and a Seaboard type situation. So I'm willing to try anything.
Obviously, it's going to be a huge career shift.
Yes.
Have you ever done anything like that or anything outside the realm of teaching?
No, not really. I worked at a gas station once, but you know, I think I'm willing to try, you know, try anything new.
How do you think that you're going to, I guess, be able to cope with that change as you transition out and do something, you know, completely different?
Truthfully, I'm excited for it. While I was here, I had to, you know, sign over not my rights, but sign over my teaching license. You know, that I understood that I'm no longer allowed to teach in the state of Iowa, which was really hard. It was kind of a grief because, you know, I did work really hard to become an educator, and I love education. However, this isn't the end. I have really good people skills. I have other skills that I can utilize in factory work or scheduling, you know, that type of thing. I can think outside the box. I'm really good at conflict resolution, surprisingly. So I just feel like it might not look exactly how I want it, but there's pieces of it that can still be great.
And then, have you had many conversations yet with the person who's going to be your PO?
Yes, my husband has actually went and met with her. She has come to the house. He sat down, met with her. He met with the psychologist of the district as well. And they kind of walked him through what they do for reentry, how it looks once I get home, kind of helped him set up an area for me in the home, just because coming from being incarcerated and being by myself for so long to now coming right back home to 5 wonderful children and a husband and dogs and animals and everything, you know, might become overwhelming. So he's just been working with my PO and the psychologist on how to himself incorporate me back into the family life and how we're going to have to work through that.
Thank you. James or Dana, any follow-up questions?
I don't.
Okay, so now, Ms. Kelsey, is the time for you. If there's anything else that you'd like for us to know or anything that you might have prepared for us today, now's your time.
I just really want to reiterate, I do take full responsibility. I did this. I understood that I did this to KB, and I am wholeheartedly sorry. I know his family does not have to forgive me. I understand that, and I understand that they will always live with this, as I will. But if I'm given this chance, I will prove that I can do right. I can follow the rules. I can be a law-abiding citizen. Again, I have lifetime parole, lifetime. And I take that seriously. I may not have a life sentence, but I do have lifetime supervision. So I will always, you know, and I feel that could kind of a safeguard for the community aspect, just so they can reiterate that, is I do have lifetime supervision. So any little misstep would lead me back here. And just the fact that my family and support system have taken these classes and everything, they really want to hold me accountable and help me to become better. And I just really would like a chance to try again.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So like I said, we're going to go into our deliberation now. So we'll have you sit back and listen. Just so you know, this interview is only a piece of what we look into when we're making a release decision. As I mentioned earlier, we also can see a number of other documents. We can see your treatment history. We can see some of those sets, workbooks that your family did. We can see, any programming that you've done inside. We can see any disciplinary notices or lack thereof. We can see any correspondence received. We can see your criminal history. So if you hear us talk about things that we didn't discuss in the interview, just know that we do have access to those and review them as part of this process. So we'll have you sit back, listen, and we'll let you know what our decision is. Dana or James, what are your thoughts on the recommendation of parole for Ms. Kelsey? Or I can start first.
Yes, I can go ahead. Looking at this, as tragic as the situation is, that requires, very sensitive nature. The thing that impresses me is the programming that I've listened to and saw in terms of doing our research and information and insight. The work that Ms. Kelsey has done. She's appeared to have been very engaged. The interview, I thought she did well. She talked about her vulnerabilities in terms of, not being the best with communicating and being better. She talked about her cognitive distortions. I felt she was being very transparent. I didn't get the sense that she was, not being forthcoming. She appears to be very humble from the situation and recognize what she did was absolutely wrong. The thing that I liked hearing was how she was engaged by sharing how she has a plan and a plan in place, and the therapy that her and her husband and family has been able to work at thus far, but still looking to have that work that will help her to better suit herself. She talked about conflict resolution and being a part of the reentry program. When we're looking at the process of evaluating people, hearing candidates talk about the reentry program and what steps that they are looking at to do to continue to better themselves is always a bonus. And then looking at this will be a lifetime parole, where she will be engaged with some supervision that will be monitoring her whereabouts and all her interactions for a lifetime. So with all those things, I'm sure you all have some others that you can share that I definitely will be open to. I'm in agreement with DOC's recommendation for a release. With that recommendation, an SSGD6, I believe, with a 20A, a 20B, a 30A, a 40A with SOTP aftercare, mental health, medication compliance, and then I would also look at the GPS as a possibility being there, small town, and just continuing to monitor movements, and then the 50A just as a stand.
All right, Dana, what are your thoughts?
Yes, as I went through this, prior to the interview, you sit back and you think, okay, what is our role as a board? And our role is to do these evaluations, make these hard decisions to establish whether or not it's safe to, put someone back, in the community. So my questions and a lot of your questions are geared towards establishing that comfort level for us. And the one thing I look at is programming and the treatment inside the facility, approved by treatment directors, proven to work. Some of those are mandated and some of those are not. We do a lot of interviews and we ask the questions, and you can tell whether or not somebody was in these treatment programs to check the box and put it on their evaluation, or whether or not they were paying attention. And I think in this interview today, it was obvious that she paid attention in this programming. She could identify her triggers. She could identify her weaknesses. She obviously took all that treatment to heart. So that puts me in the mindset that she has the tools, for reentry. And ICIW did put her in a position and she took advantage of it, and learned things from it. She's also taken an active role in a release plan to eliminate some of those things, some of those protections that we try to put in place for victims or others in the community. They've taken the initiative to do some of that themselves. Relocation, different school district, so that, I felt pretty good about that. The last piece is there's going to be ongoing supervision. She's going to have a parole officer that's going to be checking in. That's going to lay the ground rules for her. I think through her programming, she's established what a lot of that is already on her own. But there'll be a PO that'll make sure that, the necessary steps, and conditions of the parole are followed. I also had a note about the GPS on there. Given the location, where it sits in the state of Iowa, it is a small community, right? And everybody knows everybody. And I'm sure by now everybody knows the story. But that's just an additional level of protection, for the victims, for the victim's family, that we can put in place as a board. So having said all that, kind of a long-winded way of me saying, I also agree with the DOC's recommendation. I like the 50A just because that's environments that you don't need to be in. When you're trying to focus on things like conditions of parole, taking care of your mental health, making sure you're med compliant, all those things. But I agree with the codes. I would also agree with the GPS monitoring, and that's up to the parole officer to determine, how long and what that's all going to entail. But I think that's just an added protection that we can provide from our level.
All right, thank you both. I'm also going to support the recommendation here for parole to her husband. Reiterate that she's completed the SOTP programming and continued on to do that aftercare and that mentoring program, which just continues to reinforce the lessons that she's learned there. As a female sex offender, when she leaves, there's not going to be the same kind of structured aftercare programs like we have for male sex offenders. And the second district in particular has a really good program in place for that aftercare in the community that we don't have everywhere. The SETS program, I can see the accountability lists that her family members have done. They're very detailed. They're very in-depth. The conversations that she's had with her PO, who's going to do those one-on-ones with her, she's really in the best place that she can be as far as talking about risk management and programming continuing in the community. And that's what we have to look for. And that's our role. And so I'm going to support this. I want to make sure I have all the codes. I have the limited internet, no early discharge, no contact with minors, SOTP aftercare, mental health, meds, GPS, and then the 50A. I don't know. I know for male sex offenders, GPS is a matter of course, but I don't know for women. So I think adding that makes sense. All right. So Ms. Kelsey, you heard our conversation and we are going to grant your parole today. I'm going to walk you through everything that we were talking about. So you are going to go out on parole to your home that you share with your husband. You will have standard conditions of parole that everyone has, and your PO will go over those with you. And then what we do as a board is we place additional special conditions of parole that are aimed at things that we'd like you to do or things that we'd like you to stay away from that led to your crime. So I'm going to walk through those with you briefly. The first one is a 20A, that's limited internet. So you'll start out with limitations on what you're able to access. You'll still be able to search for jobs, but there will be limitations on, websites that you can go to. There'll be cell phone monitoring, things like that. And your PO will go over that with you. The 20B is no early discharge. So like you talked about, you will be on lifetime special sentence. So you'll stay on this parole status until your discharge date of 2027. And then that's when you'll begin your lifetime special sentence. And the conditions will all remain the same, but it's just a status change, essentially. The 30A is no contact with minors unless it's approved by your PO. And your PO will go over with you what's required to have that contact. And your home with your children has been approved by the district, so that's not going to prevent that placement. The 40A, those are treatment codes or things that we'd like you to engage in the community. So the first one, the SOTP aftercare, and you'll talk with your PO about what exactly that looks like. Continue to address your mental health. It sounds like you have a good plan for counseling for yourself and for your family. Continue to take your medications. It doesn't mean that you're stuck with these specific ones, but it does mean if you want to make any changes that you need to work with a doctor instead of doing it on your own. And then we are going to ask that you start with GPS monitoring, and then your PO will work with you for how long and when that's removed. And then the final one is you are going to begin with a alcohol restriction. That's the 50A. So it'll be no drinking, and then no being places where alcohol is the primary activity. So no liquor stores, no bars that don't sell food. Right? Do you have any questions for me about what any of those codes mean?
No, but thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your time today. Get out there and do all the things that you say you're going to do.
I will.
Good luck, Ms. Kelsey.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are just going to take a quick 5-minute bathroom break before we go into our next one, and then we'll be right back. You, sir.
Okay, I think we're ready to roll.
Well. Yeah, I gotta do the thing.
Right, so we have, is it Miss Brobston?
Yes, Lindsay Bronson.
Yeah, anything different from the evaluation or anything that we need to know?
Well, I definitely want to let you know that I put her in an active class. An active class is a class that covers healthy relationships, substance abuse, which is a huge issue for her. Also coping skills, which is part of active. She completed that last year. Also completed Prime for Life, which is the drunk driver's class. No major discipline has been very appropriate toward correctional staff and other incarcerated individuals. She comes to the SOTP aftercare class on Fridays. Her district has approved for her to live with her mother, who I believe will possibly be the best place for her to go. Her mother is aware of everything that she has gone through. She'll be able to be around her sons that are 11 and 5. She didn't lose custody. She's taking her psych medications, prescribed psych medications on a daily basis, and she's meeting with psych services as scheduled. No major issues since she has been back. She and I have had a lot of conversation of what she wants to do moving forward, and I believe that she is trying to make some changes, and she understands that she's going to need substance abuse services probably the rest of her life.
Yeah, so early on, I think before she came back, there was some majors in her discipline for inappropriate sexual relationships. She got all that cleared up?
We got that straightened out.
Okay.
Took a lot of conversations, some one-on-ones, and her being honest about the direction that she's going in. Of course, since she's been back, this version of herself seems more motivated to make the essential changes that she is needing. I believe that her children this time around are the motivation that she's leaning into.
All right. Excellent. Colleagues, any questions before we get started?
No.
I think we're ready.
Lindsay Robston, 6777156.
All right. Good morning, Ms. Brobson. My name is Dana Wingert, and with me today are Meredith Lamberti and James Moses, and we'll make up the 3-member Board of Parole panel that will be conducting your interview today. Before we get started, there's some things I want to go over. First of all, it's important for you to know that this Zoom interview is considered a public forum. So what that means is that members of the public or the media are able to listen to the interview, but they are not able to participate in the interview. During this interview, we'll talk about personal and confidential information like your medical history, mental health history, substance abuse history, disciplinary history, and other confidential information. Do you understand that we might talk about some of those things today?
Yes.
And do you wish to proceed with the interview?
Yes.
Okay. Before we decide to have this interview with you, the board reviewed information from your counselor. We were also able to see a lot of other information, things like your criminal history, documents from your criminal cases, your behavior in prison, and the treatment classes that you've completed while incarcerated. This interview is only a small part of our investigation and decision on whether or not to grant your release. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay, so what's going to happen is that each of the 3 of us might have some questions for you. And we'll start with our questions first. Once we've finished asking our questions, we'll give you an opportunity to tell us anything that you'd like us to know that maybe weren't covered during those questions. Once you've had a chance to make that statement, the 3 of us are going to go into what we call deliberation, which is our discussion about what our decision is going to be today. We'll do that here in this room on the Zoom, so you'll be able to hear that conversation, as we deliberate. And when that's done, then we'll come back to you, present you with our findings, and that will conclude the interview. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't have to memorize the order of events. We'll just kind of walk through it step by step, okay? All right. So why don't we start with, give me a detailed description of the crime, what landed you in prison, and why we're here today.
I got revocations for missing curfew a couple times, dropping 3 dirty UAs, and failing to completely be clean for my PO. I also, on top of my revocation, got a felony looting charge because I was scared to pull over.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the revocations. So, at the time, whether it was dirty UAs or missing the meetings with your PO, and even the criminal charge of eluding. So what was going on in your life which made those conditions of parole, unimportant to you?
The fear of losing my father. I was told a month prior to relapsing that he had 7 months to live. And I was scared to, sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
I was scared to lose him and feel all of that. On top of my abusive youngest son's father getting out of prison, that also played a factor. And I didn't communicate with my PO like I normally do, or anybody else, on what my thoughts were, how I was feeling, like I normally did, because I went 10 years clean. I was successful at that, and then relapsed, and then was 1 year and 4 months clean, and relapsed again.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, dealing with a lot of things in your personal life, and the substance abuse was how you were coping?
Yes.
Okay, so let's stay on that track here for just a second. So since revocation, since you've been back at ICIW, what have you learned in your treatment or your programming that'll provide you with a better coping mechanism than using illegal substances?
I took the active class. It helped me with not only my substance abuse, but it taught me new ways to cope. Like, instead of using drugs, I can journal. I can go to I call it my safe person, which is my mother. She has a better understanding of my addiction now that I've been incarcerated, and I've been open with her. With that, she has given me to help me with my addiction. If I can't stay clean, I will not live in her home, and she will file for custody of my children.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, about the release plan. So it's your mom's house, St. Paul, Iowa. I'm not going to lie to you. I had to look up and figure out where St. Paul, Iowa was.
You blink and it's gone.
Trust me, I grew up in one of those. So what are the, other than your mother, what are the support systems around there? Or maybe more importantly, are there pitfalls in that community? Old associates, that maybe you used with in the past. So that's a fresh start.
It's not a complete fresh start because the old crowd I was with is 20 minutes away.
Okay, so let's talk about that. How are you going to manage those relationships? If, if they hear, Lindsay's getting out, let's go check in on her. How are you going to handle that, knowing full well that, your sobriety is going to be key to your success?
I'm not gonna speak to them. Like, I made that clear when I was sitting in county. I cut off all communication. I got contacted while here by one of them, and I just told her, I was like, I can't talk to you. Like, you are literally a danger to my sobriety and my freedom, and I don't want that. I want to be with my kids, and I want to be with my parents.
Okay. Now, before you came in the room, we were speaking with your counselor, and he said this time around you seemed more determined and more motivated to be successful. Tell me why this time is different.
I have more responsibilities at home that I need to take care of. Like my dad, he is deathly ill. My children, which only have me because their fathers are absent. One's in and out of prison and one's just not there. I'm sole provider for them. And I plan, without my mother knowing, I plan to get my own place with my children so that I can be successful, because I've always wanted to be successful. I am the only one out of my parents' children that's never lived on their own.
Okay, and as part of that goal, obviously, it's going to involve conversations with your PO. But as part of that goal, what kind of employment opportunities have you looked into?
There are a couple in Fort Madison that I was looking into. I don't remember one of the names of them, but it's a labor job. Another one is at ConAgra, Siemens, and I don't know the other one. But they're all options in the area of where my kids go to school, so it's easy for me to get back and forth just in case, instead of being half hour, 30 minutes away. I've even looked into being able to get my job back at Casey's, because I was employed there at one point in time and I enjoyed it, so I looked into that too. But something that's better for financially for me would be one of the factory jobs.
Okay. All right. I'm going to turn over to my colleagues here and see if they have some follow-up questions for you, okay?
Okay.
Who wants to go first?
I think all the questions I was planning to ask, she's answered about her substance abuse, so I don't have any additional questions.
Okay. James?
Thanks. How you doing, Ms. Bropstone?
Good.
Doing good. One of the things I wanted to ask, I heard when you were talking to my colleague, I don't know if you spoke it clear, but you said that did you say that? Did I hear you say that you had a good relationship with your PO?
Yes.
Okay. What went wrong with your PO?
I stopped communicating, which was my fault by every means. When I relapsed the last time, he had already told me, I will issue a warrant if I have to, because now I'm almost 160 pounds. But the last time he seen me, I was pushing 70, 80 pounds. And he even told me, he's like, I just want to save your life. Because at that point, I was deteriorating. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't nothing. Because unable to eat or sleep, I would have to be in the household where drugs are prevented and my children reside. So trying to sleep in a car is very tough. So I wasn't sleeping and I wasn't eating.
What made you not receptive to treatment, knowing that you were going through those personal issues?
I re-enrolled because I was in outpatient ads in Mount Pleasant for a year. I graduated and relapsed 4 months later, but I had re-enrolled when I relapsed. And my instructor, what do you call them? Well, it's my instructor, but she's also now my sponsor, recommended inpatient. And when we tried to do inpatient, I was denied. And that was when my PO issued the warrant for my arrest.
When you absconded, did you find yourself in contact with your PO during that period of time?
The night prior. That night.
Just
Before
that.
he.
I'm sorry, you go ahead. My bad.
When he clocked out for the day was pretty much the last time I spoke to him, which was about 4:30, 5 o'clock. And I was angry at him, and I said some hurtful things to him.
Is there anything that you want to share today?
I told him that I wish he would die. And if they pulled me over and I was around my children, that he wouldn't have to worry about me being on his caseload.
I know it's hurtful, but I appreciate you sharing that because that is personally part of the cleanse and the continual cleansing and growth that is needed. And so you being able to share that, I appreciate it. If I was to ask you, because you completed some programming, which is very good, shows how engaged and how motivated you are. If I was to ask you from active to give me 3 values that you have today that you didn't have prior to being incarcerated. And if it's more than 3, please share even more. But if you have 3 values, can you please share that with us?
One of my main ones was self-respect. I never respected myself in the past. I'm trying to remember the sheet. I had determination, which I've never been determined to do anything, really. I've been babied my whole life. Never had responsibilities, really, until I had children. There's another word for responsibilities that I used when I was inactive. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. But I am more responsible than ever. Like, I take accountability for my wrongdoings. Like, I was wrong for running. I was wrong disrespecting my PO. That's never disrespected me. Hope. And I got my faith back. I lost my faith when I was 16. Because by the grace of God, literally, I'm alive. Because when they pit maneuvered my car, I did not have my seatbelt on.
Mm-hmm. You had mentioned also, and I'll say this in closing. You mentioned this also, journaling. Did I hear you say that right?
Yes.
Okay. What are things that you journal?
My journaling is more like writing letters to people. Like, I wrote one to my PO. It was maybe like 6-page long. And I felt like I was repeating myself, but it felt good to get it out. he had only been my PO for a couple years prior to being incarcerated. But he helped me through a lot mentally. Like our PO, our meetings that we had, yes, we talked about my probation, parole, but we also talked about personal things. And I write my kids. So it's just like what I think and how I feel, I just write it out. And sometimes I'll tear it out my notebook and I'll send it to my mom. And my mom has all my letters. In one of my journaling, I took responsibility for taking my parents for granted. And I don't plan to keep doing that. I plan to financially help them and make everything stable again.
Are you a daily, every other day, or weekly journaler?
Every other day.
Every other day? That concludes my questions. I appreciate what you've been able to share thus far.
Thank you.
Any follow-up?
No.
I just have one more. So as part of our review here, we looked at some of your mental health records as well. And I see you're on some medications. Are those medications, in your opinion, are they helpful?
As of right now, yes. But in the past, I've had to switch up medications because it would stop working. And I'd be at the highest dose of that medication.
Okay, so if you find that sweet spot, if you will, where it's helpful to take those medications, is that something that you plan on continuing if you're released into the community?
Yes, I would actually. I want that to be in my requirements in my parole plan, like a court order type thing, that I would have to take my meds.
Okay, well, I know 3 people that might be able to help you out with that. I feel like your mental health and your sobriety are going to be the 2 keys for you to be successful. I mean, that's just kind of what I'm getting from what we reviewed, and your responses in this interview. Is that safe to say?
Yes, very much so. Because when I'm unmedicated, I self-medicate, and I don't want to do that anymore. Like, that's not my life.
All right, excellent. So now that concludes our questions. Anything that you'd like to say to us that maybe we haven't talked about, anything you want us to know, or something perhaps that you've prepared? The floor is yours.
Well, one thing we didn't talk about was doing the treatment. I plan to, when I get out, get on my feet a little bit, re-enroll into the outpatient ads again, but in a different location, because I don't want to go back to Mount Pleasant. And I do have appointments set up with mental health for when I get out.
Excellent.
I'm going back to Optimate, which was very helpful.
Anything else that you'd like to share, or?
No, sir.
Okay, now you can sit back and relax. We're gonna have a discussion amongst ourselves, and we'll get back to you with our findings, okay?
Okay.
Alex?
Sure, I can go first. I'm gonna go ahead and support this release. I thought that this was a really good interview. I can see, what her counselor is talking about, how, she's really got that motivation there and that dedication this time. And, she has been able to maintain her sobriety in the past, and she knows how to do it. And, I really appreciated, especially when she was talking about her relationship with her PO. And when you asked, what went wrong, and she said, I stopped communicating, that acceptance and that responsibility is really important. She has plans in place for addressing it out in the community. She has her motivation with her dad and her kids. She has places that she could go to look for employment. So I think that she's in a really good place that she can transition out and be successful. So we have both the eluding and the special sentence revocation. So we're going to need eventually the two separate orders. So we'll start with the parole order for the eluding, because that's what would trigger the special sentence to be put back in place. So I'd be looking at this parole to mom's house. And then as far as coding specific to the eluding, I'd be looking at the 40A, substance abuse, mental health, medications, and then a 50A. And then when we do the special sentence one down the road, then we'll put the associated codes on with that.
Okay, that's helpful. All right. Like my colleague mentioned, I was very impressed with the interview. I like the transparency that was shared. I like the selflessness that was also too shared with some humility from just, knowing and recognizing what she didn't do that she could have done that's better, but letting us know how vulnerable and what stage of life that she was in when, she was at pretty much one of her worst, after relapse and stuff. But recognizing the relationship that she initially valued, but it got lost in the mix with the PO. It was nice to hear her speak about that and letting us know that she still needs that continued growth, but needing to still cleanse. So with all those things being said, and I can say others, but I'm going to go ahead and agree with what my colleague just stated. So for the codes for now, I'm in agreement too with DOC's recommendation. So for just the parole for the violation of the revocation, we'll look at the PG D3, the 40A with substance abuse, mental health, and medication compliance, and then the 50A with prohibition.
Right. I agree with everything that's been said. Go to St. Paul, Iowa. We have mom as a support system. At least she doesn't discount that PO as the additional support system. I think she had an epiphany there, on the value of having a PO and leaning on them when you need to. Some of the safeguards, she talked about them in the community, continuing with her mental health, staying on medications, and then some outpatients. So those safeguards are there. And then the ultimate motivation for this whole thing is the kids and the parents, being a positive role model, being there for them, being there for, for her mom and her dad. So I think everything's in place. And now it's going to be up to her to execute this plan. Mm-hmm. But I'm also in agreement with the same codes mentioned, and if there are no other comments, go back to Ms. Brobson. Good. All right, Lindsay, you were able to hear our conversation. I thought you were very forthcoming in the interview, so that gives us some comfort, on our end when we're making tough decisions like this. We are going to grant your release to your mom's house today. And you heard us talk about some codes, and one of them you kind of touched on earlier before we went into deliberations. So the 40A, so these are all in addition to your normal standards, conditions of parole. And you understand that at this point. But the 40A, that's to continue with the mental health side of things, the evaluation, and make sure you stay on track there. And with that, the medication compliance. Because, you said it yourself, if you don't stay in that sweet spot there, then you try to self-medicate, and we know how that ends up. Also, there's a substance abuse evaluation as part of that. We're all adults here. We know the history. We know your sobriety is going to be an important piece of that, of your success. Also, there's a code 50A, and that's an alcohol prohibition. So what that means is we don't want you drinking. We don't want you in those places where alcohol is the primary source of income. So, bars that don't serve food, you don't need to be in there. That's just an environment that, that can, potentially be toxic. And also no liquor stores. So essentially what our codes have done is reinforce the safeguards that you had already put in place and the things that are important. So that's what we came up with today. We wish you the best of luck. Do you have any questions for us?
I don't.
Okay, go out there and execute the plan.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Hey, you too, Miss Hunt.
No, I don't care.
We're,
Go ahead.
we're just gonna take a quick break before we do our final one, and then we'll be right back.
Sounds good.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
All right, you sitting in for Susan?
I am, yes.
All right, all right. So from what she submitted already, is there any updates or any additional information that we need to be cognizant of?
So she told me there was no updates from it. She gave me a copy of the parole plan here, so I looked that over. And then Ms. Park came up with this BOP classification preparation form in, I believe it was life skills. So I don't know if there's any questions you had that might be on this paper I could answer for you.
No, I don't have any questions. Maybe my colleagues, do you have any questions?
I don't think so. We can probably ask her about it since she created it. I don't think I have any questions.
All right. Well, with that being said, you can bring her in.
All right.
Life skills on there.
Now tell them your name and your number.
My name is Koon Park.
You might have to speak up a little bit.
Okay, my name is Koon Park. My number is 6156071.
Are you able to hear?
Well, no, she was kind of looking down and not looking up. So her voice was trajected downwards.
Okay.
The microphone's up there. You have to speak kind of loud.
Okay. My name is Koon Park and my number is 6156071.
Thank you, Ms. Park. That was much better. My name is James Moses. In the middle, to my right, is Meredith Lamberti. And to her right, to your left, is Dana Wingert. We represent the Board of Parole, and we are your panel that is going to conduct your interview for today. Please know that this is a public forum. Members of the public and media can listen in, however, they are unable to participate. It is possible during the course of this interview, personal and confidential information may be discussed, including but not limited to your medical history, mental health history, treatment history, or other confidential information. Is that what you are to understand of this interview?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then do you wish to continue and proceed?
Yes, if you wish to continue to proceed with the interview.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so to give you how this goes, what we're going to do is be able to ask you some questions, and we just ask that you just answer the question as best to your ability to all of our questions. Then from that, once you finish, if there's something that comes up along the way that you didn't get a chance to share when you were answering some questions, then you will get a chance to do that towards the end before we go into what is called deliberations. And that's where, before we go into deliberations, what I will do is just basically come back to you to see if there's any additional information that you want to share with us before we go into that. And then when we go into deliberations, that's where you sit back and not engage us. And you'll get a chance to hear us talk about the interview, talk about the way you answer the questions, and be able to make a decision for an outcome that will take place. Then from that, I will do my best to come back to you to share how that will transition, or do my best ability to share with you that outcome. Please know that we were able to access information. We were able to, investigate your case. We had access to things that you have completed, some programming, some history, and just things that you've done in relationship to your transition when you got incarcerated until prior to this interview, if that makes sense. So with that being said, what I'm going to do is go ahead and start it off, the interview. And I want you to share with us what happened, what led to you being incarcerated.
can you restate the question, sir?
Yes. What happened and what led to you being incarcerated? What was going on? What happened that led you to become incarcerated?
Okay. I met my husband named Song Nam at church choir, and we've been friends, and we can get closer really quickly because we both have a Korean background, and he experienced like a physical abuse from father. I also have a physical abuse from father, so we understand each other very much, and we became inseparable. But then, so we are on and off like 8 years together. But then, yeah, he was very sweet. He's very sweet, but when he upset, he became totally different person. The day he died, we went to grocery shopping, and I don't know what triggered him, make him upset, but when we get back to the car, he was very upset. He was a punch the car, and then he punched like a windshield of his car, and it was broken. He's very athletic. He's 5'10". I'm only 5. He's a black belt taekwondo master, so that he punched the windshield and then it's broken, and he's even more upset. When we get home, he asked me tie him up because he was working at airport. He set up those kiosks at airport so that he have a zip tie in his pocket. So he was afraid he would hurt me and eventually kill me, because before that day, he already choked me several times and I passed out, so that he worried that. And I'm afraid to lose him because my neighbor called the police previously, so that I was afraid so I tied him as he wanted me to. And from 8 years of experience, when I do whatever he want to do when he upset, he usually calm down quickly, and then he my sweet husband again. So I thought that that's gonna make him calm down. But we are so ignorant. I was so afraid, and then I was panicked, and then later I find out, and then I call 911, and when I met police, I just explained everything. Yeah, but again, before these things happen, I didn't even know the word domestic violence, because in my culture, husband owns their wife, so that it's okay to beat them. So when he threw up like those glass lamp on my face, or beat me with the other stuff, and even choke me, I didn't know I can ask help. He said that he have anger management issue because he have those abusive experience when he was a kid, and I thought that it's just anger management issue. So that if I make him happy, it would be eventually get better at some point. And again, he's very sweet. We are having a lot of fun with go to the trip. He made me lunchbox every day with the reader writing note. Yeah. I thought that would do. I thought that eventually it will get better. Again, I was so ignorant. We should ask help. And yeah, we just failed. I failed. I just I would give up everything if I go back, and I couldn't do differently. I still think of him a lot. I miss him a lot. I'm wondering how could our life has been if he haven't died. And this tragedy just broke everybody's heart, including his family and my family, my daughter, and again, I lost my friend, my best friend, my love of my life. Yeah, I really would give up everything if I can have another chance.
How long were the two of you married?
We've been on and off 8 years together. We've been married about a year. We engaged a long time ago, but then after like 6 months, I moved in with him. I found that he had those very violence issue when he upset. He broke a TV. He tried to jump out of a window. We live like a 23rd floor, and then he tried to kill himself, so that it all started after we moved in together. So I was afraid. So we are kind of separate. Then we get back together. So on and off 8 years. Then finally I moved in Iowa in 2017 for my teaching position in Simpson College. And he flew to Iowa to see me a lot. And he got a lot better. We got a lot better, and we missed each other a lot. So the following year we get married. And I thought that would be better.
How often was there abuse?
It was open. I cannot really. It was open. Like sometimes it's 2-3 times a week, or sometimes like just once a month. But it's not like he punched me like 365 a day. As I told you, when he's not upset, he's such a great person. He's a big goofy, make me smile. He bring me flower. He write me letter every day. We went to road trip together. We have a lot of good memory. So yeah. Well, we had a really good time, and then he upset, and everything had changed.
You mentioned before flying over here in 2017, and then he ended up flying over here to accompany you. But you came from, was it South Korea?
Yeah, I originally from South Korea, sir.
So you had mentioned something about stating that in your country, the men has total ownership to basically of you.
Right.
So did those conditions come over here as well when you came to Iowa?
Yeah, like so as of being a South Korean woman, we learn even from school, obey their husband. That's a virtue. We have to follow. That's the rule as being a woman. He's born in Korea, and he moved and to U.S. immigrant to U.S. Around 12 years old. And then his mom and dad is also Korean. So that even if he was here, he's raised very much in Korean culture. That's why his father is beating as a, while he's doing discipline. And his father also beat his mother. Same thing happened to my family as well. And yeah, I thought that. So that in Korea, even woman called the police. If a husband said that, it's a family issue, she's my wife, they just not doing anything and then just leave them alone. So I didn't know I can get a help. I just thought that, this is a part of life of being a woman and obey my husband. And then eventually he's gonna trust me and then stop beating me. That's how I thought that.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to conclude my questions for now. I may have some more for you when I come back, but I'm going to see if my colleagues have some questions to ask. Meredith, you have any questions for Ms. Park?
I have a couple of questions for you, Ms. Park. Good morning.
Hi.
So I see it looks like you've been meeting regularly with a psychologist there in Mitchellville. Is that right?
Yes.
Have you ever met with a counselor on your own before coming to prison?
Before I come into prison, I was a pre-trial release condition, so that I was a GPS monitor from March 2020. I think, yeah. And then it was like a COVID, so that all the trial has been suspended, and then my case go to the appellate court, so that I have to wait another 2 years. So that all those time over 4 years, I was on GPS monitor and technically house arrest at the time, except for my employment. So during that time, I met a couple of domestic violence victim support organization. They connect me to the therapist, psychologist, so that I have a weekly session with them. I also had a psychiatrist doctor, so that he can prescribe me for my PTSD and depression medicine, so that I on the medication like a 4 year. And so I also have Korean domestic violence supporting group, so that I also have my case manager, so that I met her weekly on the online rep, so that I've been on the treatment like a 4 year or so on the medicine.
During that time that you were on pretrial release, was that the first time that you had ever met with a counselor or talked to somebody about domestic violence?
Yes, because of this happened, I arrested to the county jail, and then the nurse asked me, a bunch of questions, whether I have allergy, like a health history, and then she asked me, are you domestic violence victim? So I didn't know those vocabulary, so I asked her what is domestic violence? And then she said that have ever your husband punch you? And I said, yes. And then she said that then you are domestic violence victim. So I didn't know even those vocabulary. And then once I retained my attorney, through her, I engaged those domestic violence victim supporting group, and then I start to have a conversation with them.
Coming from the background that you talked about with, domestic and family violence, what is, either your family or your culture's attitude toward seeking counseling for that type of situation or that type of violence?
In Korean culture, we are very closed. So we are not talking about any family issue outside people. So that if I even try, then means I'm a bad person. I have to keep family secret. So that even if my father bruised me, I just wear long sleeve and pretend I'm okay. That's what I did with my husband. Sometimes he bruised me so that I have to wear long sleeve or even wear scarf because, he'd choke me and then make a hand mark on my neck. But that's what I saw my mom have been doing. And then I thought that that's what I have to do as a part of being a wife.
Oh, when you do go back to South Korea, are you going to be able to, keep in touch with the domestic violence groups that you've been talking with, or find a counselor, or have an outlet for talking about what you've been through?
Yes, I still have a video visit with my domestic violence group. They are in Chicago because in Chicago we have a bigger Korean community, and yes, she's planning to engage me someone in Korea so that I can get my medicine. Also have a weekly therapy, and I also scheduled to meet her in person once I go back to in Korea. I mean, only I'm not retained again in Korea, so.
So that group that you're working with, are those primarily people who are also Korean who have experienced domestic violence?
Yeah, she knows those people so that she's going to be engaged in those groups so that I can keep on talking to them.
As far as, any family members, are you able to keep in contact with any of them now while you're in prison, or is that limited?
I have a video visit with my mom every Monday. She's very supportive, and she'd talk to my father a lot. So now he knows I have a serious trauma because of my abuse from him. So that they know what is PTSD, why I have those trauma, why I have a lot of fear, even panic attack. So yeah, my family is getting ready to have me back as the best they can right now.
You talked about seeing violence with your dad as a child and with your mom, and how is that going to affect your, safety and ability to live in Korea with, still being around your dad and with the background that you now have as an adult?
Yeah, I will actually talk about with the doctors in my unit therapist. I mean, psychologist. And when I first got in here, I was still in denial about my husband's death, and then those things happened to me because I never even broke the law. I even don't have a parking ticket in my life, and then all of a sudden these things happen. And then I also have a full of fear. I couldn't even talk to anybody. I'm even afraid of somebody asking my name. But then I met her like a weekly basis. I grieve my husband's death a lot, so pretty much each session I cried like entire time. And we talk about how to release my resentment, how to be aware of my emotion and fear, what is a healthy way, proper way to express it. And she also helped me a lot draw boundary, which I never able to done that before. So I think now I am equipped to, be aware of my emotion and fear, and going in the healthier way to express it. And again, my family is also educate themselves so that, understand how they should treat me. And honestly, I don't know what's gonna happen when I'm back to Korea. I'm going to be deported because of these consequences. And then once I'm deported, I will be detained by Korean Justice Department, and then they're gonna reopen case and then investigate it again. So I'm not so sure whether I'm going to be incarcerated again or I can be back to my family. But if I won't be detained again, I want to build like a new relationship with my family. Especially, I have a daughter in Korea, and she's right now very much struggle, and because Korean those YouTuber find out my case, and then they making a lot of YouTube, and then my daughter, she's 22, so I really want to help her so that she can emotionally and mentally stable as much as I can. Also, my mom and dad, they are 72 and 79. Every single time I see them on the video meeting, I feel like they are getting smaller. So yeah, hope that I can have some time rebuild my relationship, my mom and dad, before too late.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think those are all the questions that I had for you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Meredith. Dana, you have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple quick ones. I'll make this quick, Ms. Park. One of my questions is going to be what is your understanding of the release plan? But yeah, you just explained that, and what you said is also what I found as well. That there is some uncertainty hanging out there when you get back to Korea. So my questions are, you kind of explained, why you didn't report the domestic violence and you weren't even really familiar with it, here in the U.S. But you did mention that at one point, one of your neighbors called the police during one of these incidents. What was the outcome of that?
My upstairs neighbor, I think he's upset. He's torturing me. So I think an upstairs neighbor heard that, and then they called the police. And then when police knocked the door, my husband hiding in the bedroom closet, and then he said that just pretend that nothing happened. If they gonna arrest me, you're gonna lose your immigration status because my immigration status is binding to this marriage. So if he's arrested, then I'm gonna lose like my green card, the permanent residency status. So that he knew that. So he said that, you know, if I arrest, like go to the jail or whatever, then I'm gonna be, you know, you're not gonna be here. So I just did whatever he asked me to. And I didn't quite understand all those things that happened, but yeah, I didn't have any chance to ask anybody else again because I didn't know where I can find the help. And as a Korean woman, I'm not supposedly say anything happened within family to anybody else outside. So yeah, that was a outcome of what, you know, police visit. He was in the bedroom. I opened the door and then I just tell him like, sorry, I made the noise, and then that was it.
Okay, I appreciate that. So when you were out on pretrial, and then the trial got continued, you were on GPS monitoring, but you were living on your own. You had the freedom to run errands, go to the grocery store, do all those things. Actually, I think even one of the conditions was you could go for a walk, you know, several times a week. While you were on that supervision and on that GPS monitoring, were there any violations?
I was on GPS monitor over 4 years. I did not make any single violence. So that when I go to the probation officer in-person visit, she called me easy breathe all the time. You are easy breathe. So yeah, I mean, again, I never ever broke any rule in my life. I never even have a parking ticket in my life. I never had a speeding ticket. Yeah, so.
Yes, that's what I found as well. I just wanted to get that out there because you have essentially been released into the community and we didn't have any violations during that time. The last thing I want to hit on, one of my colleagues talked about some of the domestic violence services, the counseling, and are you going to be able to continue that, you know, if in fact we go with this release plan. My question is on the mental health side of things and the medication side of things, are those also things that you're going to be able to continue if in fact you end up back in South Korea?
Yes, sir. I mean, that's one thing I also concerned because I'm on the different medication now. It's helping me to, you know, not having panic attack make me like a negative mood so that I willing to continue to take those medicine and then have those therapy or meeting psychologists like a regular basis. That's why I am looking for the help with the domestic violence group, those Korean people, whether they have any other people known in Korea, so that those things is ready, so that they're gonna provide me the contact information of the therapist, psychologist. I can have a weekly session. I also find out university hospital in Korea. I can get those psychic med. And then in Korea, we have a health plan covered by government so that I don't have any problem to getting those medication.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Dana. All my questions were answered. So Ms. Park, this is that time where I was talking about before we go into deliberations, where if there is any additional information that you want to share with the board, this would be that time.
Again, I wanted him to be happy. I wanted us to be happy. And we tried at our best of our knowledge, but again, we are failed. We are simply didn't foresee this could happen, and that's why I'm thinking like if I go back to time, I would do or everything differently, getting help, getting attention on his mental health as well, on my depression as well. We failed and then I failed. In the beginning, when I first got in here, I was just afraid everything. Then throughout those provide program and weekly session, I found those value in my life again and start like learn how to release those resentment, and I hope that now I know I'm ready to make a better decision for my loved one, and so that I hope that I know his family must have a very tragic time, and my family also have a really hard time. So I hope that I can help them any way possible, include my daughter, if you allow me have opportunity. And again, I don't know what's gonna happen once I deported in Korea. I probably incarcerated again, but yeah, I made a terrible mistake, and I would like to take accountability. And thank you for letting me meeting you. I really appreciate this great opportunity. Thank you.
All right, this is that time where you just sit back and listen and just listen. And then we're gonna just go and deliberate and communicate. And then I'll come back to you and try to explain the outcome. Okay. Colleagues, anyone wants to share their position on this part?
Sure, I can go first. I'm gonna support this recommendation for parole to Ms. Park's ICE detainer to South Korea. This is terribly tragic situation. And when there has been, a life lost, there's never an amount of years or a time that we can put on it to quantify it. And, hearing her vulnerability and openness with us about the situation, I think helps make this decision. We have a number of other factors to consider here too. One is that she was out on pretrial release for years with no additional issues. She is low risk for a release, because this was family violence and domestic violence. She's worked very hard on her mental health, not just the mental health struggles in general, but also working against, some cultural attitudes and working with her family to also understand that. But we're also probably not at the end of the road for criminal charges. Her ICE detainer, is to, like she said, I lost my place, the South Korean Department of Justice. There's a very high likelihood she might face additional charges there. She does intend to, comply with her ICE detainer and to be deported to South Korea to face whatever unknowns are there. She has follow-up as far as the organization that she's been working with in Chicago that can help her identify services when she gets there for people that she can continue to work with, whether it's, virtually if she does end up being imprisoned there, or community service providers that they've been able to identify. So I think with all of those other factors that do make this case unusual, I can support it. So I'd be looking at that parole to her ICE detainer. We would put that 10B on as a fallback. I would put no early discharge on it just to tie those two together, just in case. Although, again, I think it's very likely that she's going to be deported and perhaps face additional charges. In that 40A, I would put mental health and medication compliance. And I don't think that I see anything else.
Thanks, Meredith. Dana.
Yeah, I agree with what Meredith said. She was released on the community on pre-trial and had no violations. And, you know, we went through our research and that documentation, and that's all true. You know, I think she is very low risk. You know, my thing is, you know, what has she done? Well, she's completed the programming that she needs to complete. I think she understands it. She's had to overcome some cultural obstacles regarding, you know, the crime itself. You know, even understand that. Most importantly, you know, came to the realization that there's some mental health concerns as well, and now has received treatment for those along with medications. So where are we at here? You know, at ICIW? Well, now we're just here to sit. Basically, this detainer is not going away. You know, we have a discharge date that'll be, you know, that's 3 years out. But there's an uncertain future looming out there, you know, with the Korean Department of Justice, you know, where she could potentially face charges there as well. So my opinion is, you know, I support this recommendation as well, you know, hold of the ICE detainer, because there's another process that is laying out in front of her that she's going to have to deal with as well. You know, but in terms of programming, treatment, mental health, I think, you know, what can be accomplished here has been accomplished here.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Meredith. I'm in agreement with you both, so I'm gonna go ahead and share what our decisions are. Okay, Ms. Park.
Yes, sir.
As you had a chance to listen to my colleagues deliberate, I didn't get a chance to share, but I'm in agreement with them and what they've had to share. Yes, this is a tragic situation, but in light of what the DOC has recommended, we feel that this is the best plan for you. You know, I mean, you're dealing with some unknowns, and with that being said, it was, you know, nice to hear how you responded when you were on pre-sentence investigations, not picking up any new charges or any violations, and just doing your best to just try to cooperate with what was pending during that period of time. You engaged yourself with programming. You saw that there was an adjustment. You learned about a new culture from your culture and your practices that was different. So all of those things, we concluded with that we're not going to hold you back from the detainer. So we're in agreement with DOC's recommendation to parole you to your detainer ICE. That is a PG D5 with the 10B, which, you know, whatever happens or outcomes, if something happened down the line where it's inside of your year before your discharge, then you would be housed back. The other code was the 20B, and that's no early discharge. So you will go the full time period as you do have a discharge date of October 6th of 28. If that was to be determined for you to have some different result from, you know, going to South Korea as part of the detainer. The 40A, want you to continue with the mental health, working with the therapist. Seemed like you were on that trajectory and learning different things that was helpful for you. You talked about post-traumatic stress disorder and just anxiety and just different things that you embrace here that wasn't a part of your culture that you grew up in. So learning different practices. So we want you to continue with that mental health, the medication compliance was the other one, and then that was it. So with that being said, that concludes this interview. Do you have any questions?
No, not this time, sir.
Okay. Well, wish you well and in your transition.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.